Let's stop down and take a look at the most important commodity in the great Lone Star State. We're talking about black gold. It's oil. RT Trevino's on from the Crude Truth. It's a podcast from the oil patch, and he's also with Pecos Country Energy. And I haven't heard anything about oil out of the headlines, so I guess things are going pretty good.
Oh, James, we can't complain. As far as we go here in Texas, even though the rig count has been flat for a while, we are still staying steady and drill, baby, drill here in the Lone Star State. We could always use more oil, and that's not just because of us oil and gas producers, but that's because of the continued population growth in the great state of Texas, and we're going to have to provide that energy and that summer AC for all these transplants from other states.
So what has changed so far? We're now 2 months into the Trump 2.0. What's different?
Right now the feeling is really what's different. Again, like I said, the rig count has not gone up. The price of oil has been pretty good, still at $70 today. We're back up at over 70. The thing that really has changed for the positive is the price of gasoline. We're at 3-year lows, and I don't think that's a coincidence that we get a new administration and we're now down lower than we were, basically where we were 3 years ago, which was almost when President Trump was in office last. So that, to me, is the best thing that's changed. But also during this time, even though the rig count has stayed steady, we're getting more efficient in producing oil, which actually allows us here in Texas right now to help us be the number one producer, not only in America, but the world. That right now, the United States is still the number one producer at 14 million barrels of oil a day.
I have heard that from people in the oil patch on a regular basis for the last 20 years. And I try to understand this. It feels like in agriculture, how we used to get, X number of bushels from an acre of corn, and now we can get like 30 times that from the same acre of corn. And is that what's going on in the oil patch? Fracking, y'all just, getting better at the fluid or I don't know what you're doing, but that kind of has the same feeling to it.
Yes, absolutely. With the creation of fracking and the shale boom of the early 2000s, what we're seeing now are these wells that are drilled deeper and further and have larger fracks. And we're even doing, if you can imagine, a horseshoe in some of these, where it's just a U underneath the earth. So these wells are a lot bigger, which means they're producing. So for an easy number just to say, what we may be producing now from 2 wells is what we would be producing from 3 wells maybe 5 or 10 years ago.
Just 5 or 10 years ago.
Easy comparison. Yeah, just an easy comparison there.
Well, are we at the point now where we can go back and some of these wells that were drilled, 80 years ago, we can go redo it and use the new technology and get more out of what we used to think was dry?
Well, with new technology, we can go into these older wells and extract the oil that we didn't think was actually possible to extract.
That's what I'm talking
due to
about.
new technologies. And that is something that we're working on. And even at the state level, we're working on ways to make it more incentivizing for operators like Pecos to go in and purchase these older leases to actually go in and do the work. But there's just so much work to do along with plugging these older wells that we take on that liability. So we're working with with the Texas state and Congress to really see if there's a way to go back into them for basically a financial incentive. But yes, short answer is yes. There are ways to go in to maybe take a well that's producing 5 barrels and in a best case scenario, maybe bring it up to 20 for a year or 2. But usually you're looking at maybe, 7 to 8 barrels a day rather than 5 in most cases. But there are ways to do that. And also there's additional tiers of oil in some of these deeper formations that we've been producing that we can go extract that oil from as well.
All right, I'm going to ask you something a little off topic here. We talk about barrels of oils, and that's based on the big old drum of oil that was actually like a big metal cylinder container. And when I was a kid, we used to get those old drums and race the horses around it in a cloverleaf pattern or whatever. Is that what y'all still use these days? Do y'all ever still use the barrels, or are they plastic now or made out of something else? Like, what does an oil barrel physically look like now?
Yes. Well, physically, the mental picture is still there. Everybody thinks of the 55-gallon drums. A barrel of oil is actually 44 gallons. And really, this day and age, it's all shipped via tanker truck, and pipelines. So the actual physical days of barrels of oil in some ways are gone, but we still count and sell our oil based off the barrel. And right now, base of West Texas Intermediate crude, a barrel of oil is a little over $70 today.
So what do cowgirls race around in a cloverleaf pattern these days? If not, we don't have any more old barrels. RT Trevino, Crude Truth Podcast. What you got coming up on your next episode?
Yes, Phil, thank you so much for asking. We've got some great individuals. I've got on coming up a wonderful person named Trey Cortez, who is actually one of the best geologists there is in the state of Texas, works for Burnett Oil, one of the longest running family offices there is. I also have coming on a wonderful lady named Lisa Carmen Wang that has an entire empire that she's built, and check it out. It's called the Bad Bitch Empire, and she's definitely doing things outside the norm in her neck of the woods.
All right. Well, thank you very much, RT Trevino from the Crude Truth Podcast. There's some new Wi-Fi scams out there. I have my next guest, Eric Plam, who works for SEMO. They make Wi-Fi devices, so he may know a little bit more about it. Welcome to the James Show, Eric.
Thank you so much.
All right. So new Wi-Fi scams or just new twist on existing Wi-Fi scams?
That's fair. I think it might be just a new twist on some existing scams. And so one of the big threats out there in Wi-Fi is called a man-in-the-middle attack. And there are some variations, and this one sounds even worse, an evil twin attack. And I'd be happy to explain what that is.
Sounds sinister. Ooh.
Yeah. So what that is, let's imagine that you're taking your laptop, you go to your local cafe, let's just call it Acme Cafe, and so you open your laptop and you figure, I'm going to drink my cappuccino, and at the same time I'm going to get some work done. So you look for the name of the cafe in terms of your network. You say, oh, okay, this looks like Acme Cafe's network. You connect to it, and you get some internet access, but what you don't know is that this Wi-Fi access point might have been set up by a bad actor somewhere nearby. And they're actually delivering internet access to you, but at the same time, they're intercepting your data.
They're just filtering through. So it's like the old credit card skimmer at the gas station.
That's a great analogy.
So how do we protect ourselves against that, Eric?
Yeah, so there are a few things that you can do. So the first thing is, when you go to this, let's say, imaginary cafe, ask the staff, or if you look for a sign, and make sure that you're actually getting to the right access point, the right network name. And ideally, it's password protected, and you get the password from the proprietor of this public space also. That's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is to get a VPN. So a VPN stands for Virtual Private Network, and it adds a layer of security on top of your web browsing session so that even if there was a man-in-the-middle attack, they wouldn't be able to intercept your data. So those are two things you can do. And by the way, getting a VPN is very simple. Just simply go to your search engine and type that in, and you'll come up with 5 or 10 really good options for getting a low-cost VPN.
Yeah, I get plenty of ads for VPNs in the videos that I watch. So does that mean I'm watching sketchy videos or what?
It could be.
Right.
It could be. Or maybe they just know you need a little bit of extra security.
Yeah, well, I watch a bunch of nerdy stuff. I think that has more to do with it.
That could be it. Yeah. And then there's another angle you could take here in ensuring the safety while you're online, and that is to set up your own Wi-Fi hotspot. So there's two really great ways to do that. One is you can turn most smartphones into a Wi-Fi access point. You just contact your carrier, and it's a feature that you can get. It usually costs a little bit extra per month, but that's a really safe way to remain connected. It can be a little costly, and it also burns your battery, but on the other hand, it's a safe way to connect.
Well, I see y'all, SEMO, is it SIMO or SEMO? SIMO? Y'all,
SIMO, yeah.
Yeah,
SIMO.
so y'all sell them, and this is something that we use, I don't know if it's your brand or whatnot, but we use these wireless hotspots when we do remotes and whatnot, because instead of, everyone piling onto my phone, we can all connect like the Comrex that connects back to the station and our laptops and our phones and so many other devices. If we had a TV out there, we could watch Netflix if we wanted to. So yeah, those are super helpful for us in the broadcast industry. But, I don't know anybody who uses just a standalone Wi-Fi hotspot like that. And it just seems so convenient. I'm surprised it's not more popular.
Yeah, it's very popular for travelers too. So we offer a line of hotspots called Solis, SOLIS, and these are multi-carrier hotspots. So that means that you might be in a place let's say somewhere in Texas and get one carrier and not another. We can connect to the strongest tower. You could also take it on your summer vacation out to Hong Kong or Paris, and you want to stay connected with the family while you're traveling. So mobile hotspots can be very, very convenient and also safe.
Yeah, I do see them being used where I'm from, way out in the middle of nowhere. I actually live so far out that we didn't get cable. We barely get cell phone, but we didn't get internet served to us. So if you want to get broadband internet, something like this would be the only thing out for people in super rural scenarios. So all good stuff. I didn't even think about the security angle to it, but it all makes sense. Eric Plant from SEMO, thank you very much for your expertise, sir. One thing I try and do is keep you updated on some of the latest trends and acronyms and what the kids are calling it these days. And Gen Zers are now NEETs. What's a NEET? I don't know. Let me ask my next guest, Scott Allen Curley's coming on. Scott, what is a NEET?
Man, well, first of all, thanks for having me again.
Hey, thanks for coming back on. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, well, the NEET. I forgot exactly what the acronym stood for, but it's the kids. Basically, they're not able to get jobs or keep them. At the end of the day, that's what the acronym means. Not employable, not able to stay employed. So they're not getting an education, they're not getting employed, they're not getting any kind of training, yes. and so they're unemployed and kind of not even pursuing it. Yeah, and it's an interesting dynamic because that's not how the parents, which I'm one of those parents, that's not how I thought we raised the young people. And I don't want to blame it all on the young people, but I do think we as parents have to take some responsibility for that. That's a long conversation and probably a complicated one.
Well, I am so on board with that because you don't hear me griping about this generation. They just don't know what they're doing these days, because I feel like that's not even a criticism of the next generation. That's a criticism of what's my generation, the people raising them. And I think some of us have done a terrible job raising their kids. And I also find a lot of the times it's the people who are complaining the most, like, oh, I can't stand all these helicopter parents. Meanwhile, they don't let their kid go to the park without, supervision or ride a bicycle without a helmet. And I'm like, you're part of the problem.
Man, you're right. I mean, it's technology is a double-edged sword. First of all, we've moved so fast, so quickly, which is a wonderful thing, but it's also made us lazy, or it could. Now, I'm in my late 50s. I'm not sure how old you are, but we were raised we didn't have a choice, man. We had to go cut 2 or 3 yards before we could play on Saturday, and if you stayed in the house on a Saturday morning, you're going to get put to work.
I remember my neighbor seeing my kid mow the yard and thanking me. He's like, I just don't see that anymore these days, kids mowing the yard. I'm like, screw that. I'm putting him to work. He needs to get I'd make him get a job if he was a little bit older. But apparently there's a lot of parents out there who think their kid is beneath, or mowing the lawn is beneath them. I said that backwards.
I know what you meant. I think the problem is, and I think the heart was in the right place. And in our generation, our parents, they had it pretty tough. They were coming out of Vietnam, and before that, World War II, and so I believe that we just wanted our kids to have a better life and not have to go through the things that we saw our parents go through, per se. And I think maybe we overdid it. We didn't let them bump their heads enough. And, my background. I wouldn't, it's a long story in and of itself. I wouldn't want my kids to bust their head wide open like I did. But I think it's important to allow them to bump their heads a little bit and make the mistakes and let them work through it. And I think that's where we may have missed the mark as parents.
Well, Scott Allen Curry, here's the scary part. According to the studies here, the International Labor Organization, about a fifth of people between 15 and 24 are NEETs. These are the people that they're not in education, they're not employed, they're not receiving training, they're just out of the job market and not even trying to get in or better themselves. I think 1 out of 5 is a path to destruction. It can't hold up. There has to be some sort of bounce back is my thought, Scott.
I think we need to focus on identify the problem and operatively get into the solution. I think a big part of the issue is social media, and it's so fashionable now to be a quote unquote influencer. And the problem that I see is that so many of the young people are trying to influence something that they don't even have the experience in influencing. You know, most of the time when you think being an influencer, you have to kind of know what you're talking about first.
Oh my, yeah. Well, here's the category that I'm thinking about when you say that. A 22-year-old life coach. That just makes me want to just eat a bullet. Just end it. Like, yeah, what do you know? You haven't been married. You haven't had a kid. Yeah, you haven't bought a house. So, yeah. All right. So where do we find your work outside of WBAP, Scott?
You go to ScottAllenCurley.com. I was in prison for many years, a decade actually, and was homeless and on drugs, and found a way to not be a NEET. And so my goal, and I try to help other people and young people especially to see that you got to put in some work, man, and that there's no harm, there's no foul in actually in working and reaping the benefits of hard, honest work. Believe it or not, it means something. Still.
Well, Scott Allen Curley, thank you for your story there. But parents, if you don't want your kid to be a NEET, I think the solution is pretty simple. Don't let them be a NEET.
Good point.
All right. Scott Allen Curley, thank you very much, sir. All right, that's going to about do it for the James Show today. Sorry I didn't get into the movie subsidy stuff. Maybe I'll try and squeeze that in on the show tomorrow. But I really appreciate all the emails I've been getting in Facebook messages where people were chiming in on the tariffs and the economic stuff. I don't get to respond to all my emails. I promise I read every single email that comes into james@wbap.com. I don't respond to all of them because I'm kind of lazy, I guess. I mean, I could really, I don't know, maybe I have time to do it. Most days I can respond to all of them. I don't want to promise anything and then not deliver, because then you'll email in and be like, you lied. You didn't respond to all of them. But all the Facebook messages, keep them coming. Find me on X, find me on Facebook, find me on YouTube. We got all kinds of good stuff. And don't forget about the James Show podcast. If you need some more James Show action when I'm not on 2 to 5, the podcast is out there. So go find it. Your phone knows where it's at. All right, thank you very much for hanging out. This has been The James Show. You need to stick around because Mark Levin is coming up next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM.